Welcome to the Sally Allen podcast. I'm so glad you're here today and listening to our podcast. As you know, this is a platform where we share stories of resilience. And today, actually, this is our first episode of 2023. And I have a super special guest today on our show. Her name is Jamie Lynn. And Miss Jamie Lynn is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
She specializes in narcissism. And we are really, really excited to have her share her story and how she became specialized in that, what propelled her to learn more about narcissism. Miss Jamie, welcome. Jamie Lynn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I know that we were trying to do this for a while, so I'm so excited to finally, do it. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I feel a bit rusty because it's been, it's been like months since I recorded, and I'm like, how is this gonna go? We're gonna do this, right?
I'm just all about the vibes, girl. I don't have a plan either.
I'm like, we're just gonna roll with it. So, when John introduced us, he said you had a very powerful story.
Yeah.
And I'm very, I want to hear what you have to share with us today.
Well, I guess it's almost hard to know where to start because a lot of people know I really haven't shared that much about my own history because usually I'm weighing in on other people's problems.
Given what you do, yeah.
But for me, just a little bit of my background, I didn't have it easy in life. I grew up in a really abusive home environment, and I just grew up with a lot of fear, and I think that really kind of set the tone for a lot of my relationship choices later on. Me not wanting to be home, me wanting to escape abuse kind of led me into boyfriend land. Where I was like, I just don't want to be home. I would rather be here. And, I wasn't able to recognize signs of an unhealthy relationship because my home environment was so bad. And one of the things that I tell people that have trouble or they're beating themselves up about being in toxic relationships, it's like, think of where you came from. In order for that to look good, can you imagine what you're coming from, So I went down this journey of more abuse, unfortunately, where there was physical abuse, sexual abuse, you name it, I went through it. And almost lost my life because I was beaten so bad one time. And I remember just praying. I remember praying and thankfully I was able to get through that situation, and that started a healing journey for me. I was able to get out of that relationship. Unfortunately, I still didn't have the skills to stay out of abusive relationships completely, but at least they weren't physically abusive anymore. So it was progress. And you have to give yourself credit for those small victories. It was progress. And, eventually that led me into a relationship with my ex-husband, which is the thing that I think, if anybody knows my story, is where my whole business is based off of, and was able to really, really benefit from something pretty tragic there. That was a pretty narcissistic, abusive relationship, but it was psychologically abusive. So it was really difficult for me to recognize it, and nobody around me recognized it either. They kind of pegged me as the problem. So I didn't have any support. And so I would just work harder. And I just remember that was one of the things he would always tell me is, you're not trying. And I was like, I'm trying,
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you want me to get into the details about some of the things that happened or where we want to go with that. Cause there's a lot there. I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with what narcissistic abuse is.
So I do have a question though, given what you do now. I want your perspective from when you left home from that abusive relationship. Did you feel like you went into other abusive relationships because that's all you knew?
No, I just, it was what was available to me, and they were the first ones to get to me. It was just, I was so hungry for love, and I was so desperate. I wasn't able to fill up my own cup. the first guy that came along and told me I was pretty, I thought I was in love. The first person to give me any kind of kindness, I overvalued it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anything to compare it to, really. You're coming from so much pain that you'll take even the beatings for a little bit of light.
Yeah.
And that was the trade-off I was making. I was like, well, I don't really care if he's beating the shit out of me. He takes me to dinner and tells me I'm pretty sometimes. It was better than what I was coming from.
Yeah, yeah. And not understanding what true love looks like. You will take whatever you get. And I also feel like we, you know what? I just wrote this and I can't even read it. Let me see. Oh, I think what I was trying to write is what you put out, the vibrations you put out is what you attract. The people you attract.
Well, I don't know, Sally. I agree and then I disagree because one of the things that I don't like that I think is just pop psychology bullshit is everything happens for a reason. That's bullshit in my opinion. No, it doesn't, But I do think that with God, okay, it won't destroy you. I think with God, you can get good out of even the worst of things. And that's kind of my principle and my outlook on really tragic experiences. Like when I look at children with cancer, I don't think God willed that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think that happened for a reason. I'm like, God. But with him, I think somehow there's grace and somehow there's healing, even if it's not in the way that we foresee or would hope. And so I apply those principles to my own life, even in moments where I remember for years I had so much anger towards God.
Yeah.
For the things that happened to me. And I was like, because I grew up in church. And I was like, I loved God. But when these things started happening to me, I was like, I don't believe in God. Like if there was God, I mean, these are the principles that go against how you were raised, And I was like, well, where were you?
Yeah.
When all of this happened, where were you? And it really took, I had to really kind of battle with that for a while before I came back to my faith.
Yeah. So to clarify my question that I ask you, I feel like when you are broken, right, and you don't know better, that you attract broken people.
I think you entertain them.
You entertain them.
I think you can entertain them because, look, like, a narcissist is going to hit on a healthy person and an unhealthy person. An unhealthy person is going to be more likely to entertain them. Yeah. An abusive person is a person that's verbally abusive is going to be the same to a healthy person and the same to an unhealthy person. One is going to be more likely to tolerate it, and the other one is going to be more likely to set boundaries and say, fuck you. Right. Yeah. And so it's what you entertain. It's not necessarily what you attract. Now, with the vibe thing, like I do believe in energy and what you put out is what you get. But like, sometimes it gets a little muddy when you talk about things like this.
Yeah. Tell me about your Jesus journey.
Well, I grew up in the church, and I always grew up feeling connected to God. I never felt separate from him until these things started happening. Actually, I started questioning my faith way before that because I grew up with some wacky shit. But that was man, that wasn't God, and I learned how to separate the two. But it was human behavior that started making me question my faith, and I just thought it was God, And once I went through some abuse and stuff like that, I stopped going to church, but I never really stopped talking to him, I guess you could say. I guess I stopped practicing in the traditional sense, but I would talk to him all day long. I just wouldn't kind of acknowledge it sometimes. And anytime I was really going through a difficult thing, I would always ask for prayer. I would always go to that. And that to me was a source of comfort and a source of safety and security. And I really went back when my ex-husband left me. That was a moment, man, my feet dropped to the ground and I was in complete surrender. And I was like, I remember I said the most powerful prayer of my life. It was so cool what God did to me during that time too. I mean, the amazing shit happened. But I remember he was leaving. And that was crazy. And I remember I just, it wasn't an audible voice, but it was a thought, that wasn't mine. And when you're, it says my sheep will know my voice, and you know his voice. And I knew it was God. And in the midst of the chaos, everything in my world slowed down, and I had a very clear thought. And it was this: I wonder where you'll be a year from now. And so I made specific attention to pay attention to attention. I really paid attention to the date and the time. It was just a moment. And then later that night, or it was a few weeks afterwards, because leaving can be a bit of a process. I remember being in my new place for the first time. Never had stayed a night by myself before. There was so many changes, and I was just broken, as you had said. I was beyond broken is the place that I'd called it. I said I'd been broken so many times I didn't think I could possibly break anymore. Yeah. And I remember I fell on my knees, just like a little girl again. I used to pray on my knees, and I got down off of my bed, and I got on my knees, and I prayed the most powerful prayer of my life. And I said, God, if I have you, I have everything I need. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. And something in me broke. Something in me broke that day, and my life got better and better and better every day after that. And he did some really cool stuff along the way.
So, Jamie, you talked a little bit about your ex-husband and the abuse. He left you. You didn't leave him.
So I was kind of talking about two different relationships. The one that I kind of ran to after my early childhood abuse was physically, verbally, and sexually abusive. My ex-husband was psychologically abusive and verbally abusive as well, but not physically abusive. And yes, he just left one day. We didn't have a good relationship, so I don't want to mislead anybody. It wasn't like rainbows and butterflies and then he's like, you're leaving. Right. But I didn't think that, he was also a man of God, and, I thought we were in this together, and I thought that, our conflict and the things that we disagreed about weren't anything outside of what would be within a normal range, but it was the cruelty and the coldness and the surprise, and he had it all planned out ahead of time. He had it all planned out, and he did some very vindictive things to let me know it was intentional and to really hurt me where it would get me the most.
Wow. And that's after that relationship, you got close to God.
That was a moment where I think I really just surrendered and I was all in. I had a period where I had some separation, but I was never really completely gone from God. But that was the moment where I was reading the Bible every day. I was practicing my faith every day. I was just talking to God, really. I was just having a relationship with him, I was like, yeah, homies.
Well, talk to us about some of the tools you use to rebuild your resiliency. Actually build your resiliency, because it seems like you've gone from the physical abuse and you're like, you drew the line there. You're like, that's not happening. But then you came to the emotional abuse and the mental abuse, and then you got out of that. What are tools you used?
So I didn't actually get out of any of it, guys. I don't want to lead you on. I was rescued from it. Look, my ex-husband left me. That was a gift from God. I didn't leave him. I was going to be in it till the day I died. Luckily I was still a minor, and I was removed from the physically abusive one. But again, I didn't choose it. I was saved. So I think that that's divine intervention. Some skills that I used to heal. Yeah. The number one thing that I did was I focused on myself and loving myself. I started investing energy into Jamie and who I am and what I'm here for and what's my purpose and how can I start nurturing and ministering to myself. And I remember one of the things that I did, so I would say focus on a skill set, focus on something that you like, something that brings you joy. And one of the things that I did was I started doing makeup, because I loved makeup, and I wanted to feel pretty, and it was always something that he was against. Didn't really want me to wear makeup or would make fun of me when I would. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get really good at makeup.
You go, girl.
And so I did. I started using makeup and started gaining money from that unexpectedly. And so it was, but it started rebuilding my confidence.
Yes.
And that was really important. And I focused on my fitness. I started getting very heavy into fitness after that. And that really helped me mentally kind of channel some, just even anger that I had. And you start feeling better about yourself. So those are some things that I did, just nurturing myself, taking care of myself mentally. A big one, the biggest one, was forgiveness. That was the number one thing that I did. And forgiveness is a bitch. You know what I mean? It is not a one time I forgive you thing. It is like something you have to do over and over and over again. But when I said that prayer, if I have you, I have everything I need, somehow it got easier after that. And here's one of the things that I did that really, I think, breaks this kind of like feeling that you have towards people. I really went biblically with this, and I was like, all right, what does the Bible say about this? It says, bless those that curse you. So I started really small, and it was so hard for me. But I was like, I blessed him. And I'm not kidding. Something broke every time I would do that. And I just stopped thinking about it. And I wasn't even intentionally trying to help people with this. I didn't recognize what it was at the time. I had no idea. But somehow these things just started happening. And I was like, oh, I think you're dealing with the same thing. Like I'm not telling people what I went through or anything like that. But I'm like, I know exactly what to do here. And I can really help you. And then it's just started that, I guess, that energy, right? You know, people just land in my lap that are dealing with this, you know? And I'm like, it's no accident you found me, man. It's not.
So I went radical with the forgiveness. Because like you, I have suffered, you know, all the things that you suffered with. But mine was so radical is that if Jesus died for my sins on the cross, he was nailed on the cross, what gives me the right not to forgive people? And that has really changed my mindset, because when you believe in something so strongly and you know that you know that you know, there is no going back, and no one can change your mind. And no one has that power over you or the stronghold over you, because when you can forgive, that's on you.
You know, I know. And it's such a feeling of bondage, right? When you're in unforgiveness, it just really kind of poisons you. And I remember reading a verse in the Bible that says he won't even hear your prayer.
Yeah.
And that scared me. I was like, I need you to hear my prayers, okay? Like, I've got needs that need to be met, God. So
and answer fast. Like,
I know. I'm like, hello, speed dial. So, but I took those things seriously. And you know what? Even if it's not about being perfect, it's about your heart. Right. And that's what matters to God, is your heart. And he saw my heart, man. And he saw your heart, you know, and that's what matters. It's not about being perfect every time. We're all going to have moments where we slip up, and believe me, I was far from perfect on my journey. And I still am. I still have things that I need to learn and things that I need to overcome, but I'm willing to give. Self-forgiveness is also an important thing that I did, is forgiving myself for not knowing, not doing better, not loving myself like I should have. I had so much self-hate after going through stuff like that. And I really had to start releasing that and saying, I'm worthy. I'm enough. And God, even saying it out loud, it just like, it's heartbreaking, because so many people feel that way. And you're enough, and you're worthy, and you have to believe that. If you want God's blessing, you have to believe you're worth it.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was a process, the self-affirmations? Was that what helped you got through that? Or
I teach that in my practice. I do cognitive challenging and reframing, and the rewiring of the brain. I do all of that stuff when I work with people, and I do it on myself. But really but I think that was a natural side effect of forgiveness. I didn't really do it intentionally. I was aware of when I was talking negatively or being critical, and I would try to be loving, but a lot of times I just really failed miserably. And sometimes you just needed a kind word, and sometimes I had to go outside of myself and surround myself around supportive people. Another thing that I did to heal and recover is I dropped a lot of people in my life.
Yes.
I dropped a lot of relationships. Deuces.
Yeah. You got to recognize those ones that are toxic, the ones that are not helping you grow, and let them go.
Yeah, and you know, God told me something about that way before I ever had to make that decision, about one of my friends in particular. I remember having a dream about her, and he said, you can't take her with you. And I had no idea what that meant. No idea. And then years later, that I was like, holy shit, you know, like, but that's how cool God is, you know. He gets you ready even before you know.
Yeah. So how long ago did you start your practice, and, you know, what vision did you get for your practice? How did you get into it?
I didn't get into it. That's what God does, you know. I didn't try to create a business from this. I didn't try at all. I just I was working as a therapist, and I was seeing clients, and I had one couple in particular I had one woman in particular, and she had an anxiety attack in my office, and I was very quickly able to assess what was going on and the abuse, and I knew it was narcissism. And I remember really going into that and explaining with her. I ended up working with her and her husband, and then from there got many referrals. My name started getting out there as being really well known in the area, and it just kind of took off from there. And now this is what people really seek me out for. And it's just ironic, because when God says, you know, he'll make you a plate before your enemies, it's ironic that that's what my business is, when that's when, because I wasn't trying to do it. I wasn't trying to get him back. I didn't care. When you forgive somebody, you don't care.
That's right.
You know? Yeah. So I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about him. I was trying to help other people. And then in spite of that, I had opportunities to actually, I remember a point where I wanted so bad to share my story. I wanted so bad to, you did this to me. And now I could give a crap, you know? But here I am presented with opportunities to share, and that's what God will do.
I just love how you're sharing your story, but in every facet of your story, you're just weaving God in there and showing what he's done for you. And I absolutely love that. And I can so relate, like when I published my book 2 years ago, I had such negative response from my family. I feel like I can't speak today. I'm just like, your words are not coming. But I had such negative response from my family that I went into a dark place for 6 months. And God brought me out of that dark place, because during those 6 months, no one could comfort me. And I realized why I needed to sit with just him. Mm-hmm. And right out of that dark place at the end, you know, I hear voice like you do. Mm-hmm. I heard this clearly, like no one can steal your dreams.
It's a calm voice. It's like a thought. But you know it, man. It's not like anything else.
You know, no one can steal your dreams without your permission. Rise up.
That's beautiful.
And then I got the call, like, you need to give people a voice to share their stories. Because how many stories are hidden under a rock? These beautiful stories of resilience that would encourage so many people. That it needs to be out there. People need to hear these stories. So I'm so grateful that you're giving so much shout out to his name today, because I praise his name too.
God is good, man. And thank you for sharing that and giving people a platform, because we don't always know what goes on behind the scenes, right?
That's right.
But I can't talk about my story without God. He's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah, and I tell people the same thing. I met him when I was 8 years old, and I can't talk about my story without saying I met him. I didn't know him like you. I was always talking to him, but didn't know who he was. I literally did not know. So it's another cool story for another time. But tell us, like, what's your practice? What are you doing? How can people reach you?
So I do have my own private practice. So what is my private practice? Brain fog today. Sorry, it's been a long day, guys. I had back-to-back clients all day today.
9 coaching sessions today. So we're both, that's what we can speak.
I know, I'm fried. No, like, so you can find me at Jamie Lynn on Instagram. A lot of people just DM me for like appointments on there. I'm on Psychology Today, so you can find me on there as well. I'm not taking insurance. I know that that's a question that people want to know. So it's just cash pay. So, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. You know, it's just like coaching or anything else, you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
what
where
are
you can
some of
find
the
me.
processes and methodologies that you use for your clients?
Well, I just do what works. I am not, look, I'm the realest therapist you're ever going to meet. I don't really like the psychological jargon, but I do CBT, I do DBT, I do psychoanalytic. I like systems. I'll do stuff like that, but at the end of the day, guys, none of that really matters. Like, what you want is results. And look, if you want to work and you're serious about getting better, like, I can help you. I can help you do that.
Yeah. So
But you're going to work.
You have to be willing to work, and you
You
have
really
to be
do.
ready.
Look, I think everybody shows up and they want support and they want help. I think everybody I meet wants that, but not everybody's willing to do the work.
Yeah, I've learned that too in my practice and my
Mm-hmm.
like not everybody is willing, and they come back with the same thing, and I'm like, but you have the tools.
Yeah, exactly.
Go use the tools before
Yeah.
you come back. But how long have you been doing that?
I mean, I've been in the mental health field for over 15 years. I've been in practice for about 8 years as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I did social work for 8 years before that, family specialist, group homes. Like, I would go into the jails and work with the girls in the jails. So I've kind of have a background in everything. And then I branched off and did my own practice about 3 years ago.
How 15 years when you look 18?
Oh, Sally, I'm never leaving.
I had no idea how old you are, but I thought between 18 and 25.
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take it. It's the Botox.
At least you're being honest. I'm like, give me some tips.
As long as I can't move my face, it's fine.
You're fine. I love it. I love it. I'm really enjoying this with you, and I'm glad it's the first one because I feel like there's so much good energy.
That's like one of the best compliments I can get, man, is that. So thank you, because I worked really hard on changing that. I had a lot of negative energy for a really long time where I was very cynical, not so fun to be around. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's part of taking back your power.
Yeah.
When you can be in that space, no one has any stronghold over you.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm at that place for sure. And it's very freeing, and it's just such a blessing to have, just to not think about things,
Yeah.
You're just free.
I might have to come to see you to change that mindset.
Girl, I got you. I got you. You would not be the first, okay?
I like it. I like it. So what's a takeaway for our audience today?
I guess I kind of have too. When I was kind of rambling to myself on the way over here, like I was saying to you, it really does. Look, you're not responsible for things that happen to you, but you're 100% responsible for how you manage it. And you have to make a choice, okay? And that choice is going to cost you. Either way, it's going to cost you. You can have a mindset of defeat, or you can overcome. So that's one takeaway. And the second one is this, and this is my personal rule for myself. If I ever have to go through something ever, I'm going to benefit from it. Otherwise, it feels like a waste.
Wow. I've never had anybody given a takeaway like that. If you have to go through something crappy, you will benefit from it.
I'm going to benefit from it.
You're
I don't
going
say
to
I want to. I say I'm
Going
going
to
to.
benefit.
And I mean that.
Yeah.
I 100% mean that. Like, come for me. I'm going to benefit. It doesn't mean I'm going to get you, but it means I'm going to benefit from this. This isn't going to destroy me because my mindset is one of overcoming. It doesn't matter what I face. I know me and I know myself, and I'm going to benefit from it.
Girl, that's a steely mindset.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty rock solid. But in order
rock
to get
solid,
there, like, you have to overcome so much, right? You don't get that kind of confidence without challenge.
Yeah. Well, friends, you know what I say in closing? It's never too late to start living resiliently. And I feel my takeaway, and everything keeps flying out of my head today. But I do feel my takeaway. I know what I'm going to say. Everything that we go through has a purpose. And if the quicker we see the purpose and the plans that is in that trial for us, the quicker we get out of it and the stronger we become. So thank you again for watching our podcast. Thank you for being here. And if you like our podcast, remember to rate, review, and share with your friends. We can't do this without you. Thank you.